like me and you enjoy growing flowers, then maybe at some point the idea of selling flowers has crossed your mind. Now, if you're new to the flower farming world and you don't exactly have buyers lined up at your door ready to buy everything that you're growing, I think one of the easiest ways to get your flowers in front of potential customers is through a roadside farm stand. Back when I first started selling flowers here at Two Sisters Flower Farm, we sold exclusively through a roadside farm stand. Early on, I wasn't confident enough in my ability to grow cut flowers, and I didn't necessarily want to sell flowers through some sort of subscription model or CSA because I didn't want the added pressure of pre-selling my bouquets. I just didn't want to have to deal with not having the right flowers ready at the right time, especially when I was just getting started. During those early years, I was really looking to gain experience, growing flowers and making bouquets. And so the farm stand was convenient because I could simply stock it when I had bouquets to sell and not stress the rest of the time. Now, last week, for the first time this season, we dusted off our old flower stand. We put it out by the roadside, selling lots of bouquets to the people that drove by. To be honest, we sold more bouquets than I anticipated that we would. And I was reminded of just how effective roadside stands can be, in boosting sales, and how helpful they can be in bringing in new customers, allowing you a chance to meet customers that you may not otherwise cross paths with. Now, I am certainly not an expert when it comes to roadside stands, but I do feel like I have learned a thing or two in the last couple of years of running our flower stand here at Two Sisters. And that's what I want to focus on in this video today. Sharing our experience in hopes that it helps you run a more successful flower stand this season. So if you're ready, let's go. Okay, I feel like we have to break down some of the most important elements and maybe even debunk a few myths when it comes to your roadside flower stand. So let's start with the stand itself. Since the beginning, I've always used this old hay wagon that my boss at the dairy farm that I work at, that he allows me to use. I have said this before about a lot of things, and I'll say it again here, but I am a firm believer in using whatever you have available. You absolutely do not need anything fancy for a roadside stand. I've seen people use picnic tables, kitchen carts, card tables, you name it. As long as it has some sort of flat surface on it, you're good to go. You may also think that you need a stand that is large and that can fit a lot of flowers, but let me debunk that myth right here and right now. So this hay wagon, it's good size, and I'm not quite sure of its measurements, but I can fit a lot of flower bouquets on here. And while that is an advantage, it's also a disadvantage because it means that in order to create a large impact, I regularly need to stock this with a lot of flowers. Think about it. No one likes driving by a roadside stand when it looks like it's already picked over and half empty. So anytime that we set the stand by the road, I feel like I have to have at minimum 20 bouquets on here to really make a statement. And for anyone that's created bouquets before, that's a lot of work to harvest and arrange that many flowers. There's some days where I have just a handful of flower bunches packed, and I don't always feel like it's in my best interest to set the stand out when it only has 4 or 5 bouquets on it. So if you're looking to build or buy a farm stand, take in consideration the size. You likely don't need as much space as you think that you do. Now, one thing about the stand that I think is absolutely necessary, especially when we're talking about cut flowers, is this canopy that we have attached at the top. So we attached this canopy to the hay wagon using material that we had lying around. My family and a bunch of friends came over one afternoon and they donated their time to help me build the structure that actually holds this canopy in place. Now, all this wood, it's actually scrap wood that we took from my parents' deck when they had it removed from their house. And then there's this PVC pipe. We bought it real cheap. I often joke that it may not be fancy, but it certainly is rustic, and nowadays I feel like people pay a lot of money for that rustic feel. For the canopy itself, my mom, she's a talented seamstress. She took this fabric and created this little canopy for us so that the flowers are protected from the elements. And here's why that's important. You see, we all know that cut flowers, the longer they spend in direct sunlight, the less face life that they have. And so protecting your flowers from that extra exposure to sun and heat is really important so that your customers get a bouquet that still looks fresh and lasts a long time, even if it sat on your stand for just a little bit of time. So if you can, I definitely encourage you to find some solution to keep your flowers from getting cooked in the direct sunlight. Again, you have lots of options. I've seen people use patio umbrellas, or you can even build a roof using scrap metal or wood. Now, other things that you need for your farm stand, I think one of the best things that you can have is adequate signage. If you're selling flowers on a roadside stand because you want to build a profitable business, and especially if you'd like repeat customers, one of the best things that you can do is have signs that tell people who you are and what you're about. So let me walk you through some of the signs that we have at our farm stand. I will say that we upgraded to these A-frame signs this year. In past years, we've always had those landscape signs that, had the metal frames that simply poke into the ground. And while those were cheap and they looked great, the problem was that they weren't super durable. And they really had a hard time, at least for us, for even making it through one season. These A-frame signs are much sturdier and they can stand up to some wind and anything else that Mother Nature throws at them, so I definitely recommend them. The first sign that I think that you absolutely need is some sort of sign that tells people what you're selling. Remember, people are driving by your stand quickly, and unless they're actually looking for your stand, they might not even be aware of what you're selling. So we have this roadside stand that faces to the direction of traffic, and it shares exactly what we have available, which is fresh flowers. Something else I think is important to include is the forms of payment that you accept. This is something new that we've done this year, and it's helped us get even more customers. I think the assumption with a lot of people, I know I have this assumption, is that when you pass a roadside stand, the assumption is that they only accept cash. And as someone who doesn't often carry cash myself, that's one of the reasons why I don't often stop at stands when I pass them. By sharing with our customers ahead of time that we accept alternate payments, it truly increases the likelihood that people will stop to at least look at what we have to offer. Not only that, but I also think it helps us increase the number of bouquets that we sell per transaction. In my experience, people who carry cash, they often only carry enough to cover one bouquet. But the customers who are using Venmo to pay for their product, it's not unheard of for those people to buy 2 or even 3 bouquets at a time. Just something to think about as you're considering what forms of payment to accept. I really think it's important to approach your farm stand setup with the assumption that whoever stops knows absolutely nothing about who you are or what you have to offer. Now that's why all of our signs include our farm logo. We even have this second A-frame sign here that shares about our U-Pick events that we're offering at our farm this season. Honestly, it's my hope that people love the product that we offer, and I sincerely hope that they'd want to buy from us again in the future. And that's really why I find it so important that people know who's selling them their bouquet. I want them to get back in their cars and look for more ways to engage with us, by doing something like following us on social media. If we can convince someone to give us a follow on either Instagram or Facebook, it's easier for us to stay in contact with those people and sell to them in the future. Okay, moving on to location. One of the biggest arguments that I hear from other flower farmers who think that a roadside stand won't work for them is that they're too far out in the country, and they think that because their location doesn't get a lot of traffic, that they won't have great success with the flower stand. I'll admit, we are very fortunate to have our stand located next to a busy road. Despite what this video clip here shows, we certainly do get a lot of traffic, which really does help to introduce us to new people. But while having the right location, it can help, it's definitely not the deciding factor on how well your farm stand will do. One thing that I've learned is that when you build a brand and you share your brand online, the right people, they're more than willing to drive to you. So no matter how small you think your audience is, I promise you that if you stay consistent with sharing about your flowers and where people can buy them, there will be people who show up to support you. Now, if you're going to rely on social media to help get the word out about your flowers, I will say that I think it's very important that you clearly communicate your hours. This was not my strength in the early years. I didn't communicate clearly when we would have fresh bouquets available and stocked in our farm stand. People often would drive out to the flower stand location and they would be disappointed when the flower stand wasn't there. I know this because they would send me messages on social media about their disappointment over having to leave empty-handed. And of course, I felt terrible that they didn't get flowers on the day that they wanted them. Nowadays, I share a schedule on both Instagram and Facebook so people know exactly when they can expect fresh flowers from us. Our followers know that they can grab flowers every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I even go so far as to let them know the time of day that we will be stocking the stand. On Wednesdays and Fridays, we put the flowers on our stand starting at 4 p.m. That way we can avoid having flowers sit during the hottest parts of the day. And it's also a great time to catch your customers because they're likely on their way home from work. Again, back in the early days, I used to put flowers on our stand first thing in the morning, and people didn't stop simply because they were on their way to work and they didn't have a way to keep their flowers fresh all day long. Having well communicated hours is key for us in our small business, and it definitely makes things easier for us because it helps us manage our customers' expectations. But I also think it's easier for customers because they enjoy the convenience of just being able to swing by and grab a bouquet. You know, if we didn't have the farm stand, people would otherwise have to contact us either on social media or through our website because we don't have a retail location. They'd then have to place their order and arrange a time for pickup, and for some people that's simply too much. You know, they just want a more simple option. I think that the flower stand really helps fill that need. Now, before this video gets way too long, I do want to share just a couple quick and easy best practices that have helped us be successful with our farm stand. Number one, I can't encourage you enough to use whole dollar amounts. Don't try and get fancy and sell your bouquets for $19.99 or $14.99 or some other odd dollar amount that you would expect at a typical retail store. Put yourself in your customer's shoes and think about making their experience at your farm stand as easy as possible. Use the dollar amounts that people actually have on them. We tend to stock our farm stand using 2 or 3 options at most. We usually have a $10 option for someone that wants something small and affordable, as well as a $20 option for a more traditional bouquet. Every once in a while, we'll add a $15 option in there, but again, remember, simple is your best friend. The second best practice I want to mention is to have fresh product on your stand. Now, as the owner and operator of your farm stand, it's your call with what you use to stock your actual farm stand. Let me tell you, I know how tempting it is if you have leftover bouquets that didn't sell at the end of the day. I know how tempting it is to want to throw them back on your farm stand the next day in hopes that someone buys them. I mean, you put all that time and effort into harvesting those flowers and arranging them into a nice bouquet. Obviously, you'd hate to see that time go to waste. But here at Two Sisters, I'll make it a habit to only stock our farm stand with fresh bouquets. And that's because I am much more focused on the long-term potential of the customers that buy from us than a short-term sale. Look, I know we're all just trying to make money. After all, that's why you're selling flowers in the first place. But here's the thing, when you can give your customers, even if they're just random people who drive by your farm stand, when you can give them an experience that is exceptional, when you can provide them with a bouquet that is fresh and that will last really long, those are the people that will turn into your repeat customers. I think I've said it in videos before, and I think I mentioned it specifically in this video right here where I talk about making a profit from flowers. But repeat customers are so valuable to your business for the simple fact that it's so much easier to sell to a repeat customer than it is to try and bring new customers into your business. And I can give you a quick example of this. So last week I created a fresh bouquet for a new customer that has never bought from us before. She placed her order a little late, but rather than turning her away, I went through the trouble of creating a bouquet and making sure that she got flowers that same day. She was so happy with her experience that she decided to come back to purchase again. She bought a U-Pick ticket to one of our events, which was great. But what was even better is that she went and invited 10 of her friends to come to that same U-Pick event with her. It's crazy to me because I did absolutely zero work to attract those 10 other people. My time and energy was focused on creating just one really great $20 bouquet. And at first glance, that $20, it may not seem like much, but from that $20 sale, it turned into at least 10 U-Pick tickets, which brought in an additional $250. That is the power of repeat customers. They do the selling for you. So again, I'll just encourage you to use your best judgment and only place the best of your flowers in your farm stand. I really can't encourage you enough to at least maintain some sense of quality control so there's more of a chance that your customers are satisfied with their purchase. Okay, we've talked about a lot of the good that comes with operating a farm stand. I think it's only fair to mention a few of the downsides because yes, there are some. The most obvious downside is especially if you're operating a self-serve farm stand, is that I've had plenty of times where people have simply taken bouquets without paying for them. And it is so frustrating to do all that work and to open the cash box and see nothing inside. Now, there's certainly ways that you can protect yourself against this. You can sit out by your farm stand and operate more like a retail operation. Again, that takes away time, but then you're guaranteed to at least have received payment for your work. You could also install, video cameras, and I've never personally used that option, so I don't know how effective it is. Last year, we actually hung up these banners that you see across the top of our farm stand. The first one says something along the lines of, "We still believe in a few old-fashioned things like the honor system." And then the second sign says, "Thank you for supporting our family." Just reminding people that if they're going to steal, it reminds them of who they're stealing from. They're stealing from a hardworking family that's just trying to support themselves. We're not some big business, so it actually does take away from us financially when they do that. It just gives people something to think about, and hopefully it keeps them from stealing our flowers. I think another downside is that you're a little limited by the weather. Whenever it's raining or really windy here, we don't put out the farm stand. And sometimes that can limit sales, and especially if you don't have other options for people to buy, it might be something worth considering. Okay, so I feel like we've been talking about farm stands for a while now, and I think that I covered all the important parts, but if there's anything that I missed, leave your questions in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And while you're down there in the comments, I'd love it if you give this video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button in case you haven't already. Now, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. We really do appreciate it. And as always, I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye, guys.